back, everybody, to Recharging the Human Battery Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Stefano Sinicropi. We are on AM 950 radio. And man, has it been an absolutely crazy, just a crazy week in the news. And obviously, as a healthcare provider, you guys know what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the tragic, absolutely tragic and senseless killing of the UnitedHealthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. And wow, has this sparked an incredible debate in America. And I can tell you that since the shooting happened, the debate is only getting more heated with higher rhetoric. It's basically being talked about on almost every major news channel, whether it's, finances or your regular kind of, news stations. But there's so many things to unpack with this, tragic event. And I'm going to try to do that in the short time that we have together. And I'm really curious to know what you think about it. Please leave those in the comments. Because people really have a lot of opinions on this. And it's really a shame that it takes something like this, which ruins a family's life, to bring to the forefront something we've been talking about on this show quite a bit. And that is what is going on with healthcare in general, how people can seek care, but how there really does need to be reform in the way that insurance is doled out in the United States, because my feeling, we've talked about it before, a couple things. One, it's really become so bureaucratic that it slows down the process of people receiving care. So even in situations where people obviously need the care, obviously are going to get approved for something, there's just all these hoops that people are being made to jump through, and that delay in care is really hurting. It's a problem. It's something we talked about openly. Again, I'm not here, trying to say, we should be, rioting in the streets, or nothing to do with that. I'm just trying to help the people that I'm taking care of, and you, the end user, to get the best possible care, and that's delivering care early. Then the next thing is denying people for things because of not dotting the I's, crossing the T's, inappropriate denials, which are happening more and more, utilizing AI programs to deny without any transparency on why people are getting denied, and the frustration that it is creating, and literally the evisceration and the taking away of the autonomy of physicians and other providers to make decisions that we really believe are in the best interest of the patient. And we'll get into that. We'll get into some of the other things on the other side of the segment. But the last thing, and maybe not the last thing, I don't know what we're going to have time for, because obviously I'm pretty fired up about this particular topic that, I want to bring up, is this need, for people like myself who had to create clinics outside of the traditional medical system. I see patients all day, every day, right, in the traditional medical system. But because there are so many things that we can do to get to the root cause of people's problems without I'm talking without non-medication, non-surgical options like functional lab testing, like biohacking, all the things that we talk about here on this radio station, we can't even do that within the insurances. Then they're low cost, and they're going to save trillions of dollars to the community as a whole. But yet we can't even do that, and we're so busy, prescribing to what the insurance company will let us prescribe. And obviously I didn't accept that, and I went outside of the system, and I'm really trying to help people inside and outside of the system. So let's try to distill this down in our short time together. We'll see you on the other side of the break. We're on AM 950 radio. This is Recharging the Human Battery. I'm Dr. Stefano Sinicropi. Talk to you in a minute. Battery Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Stefano Sinicropi. We are on AM 950 Radio, and we've got a very important topic to discuss today, and that is front and center in the media this week, and that is the tragic killing of the CEO of UnitedHealthcare, Brian Thompson. Again, I just want to say, condolences to his family and really just, one, family devastated and just really no excuse for violence in this situation. Okay. Despite the fact that I know a lot of you are upset with your interaction with insurance, and not being able to be approved for things that you and your physician want to move forward with. Let's try to, talk about some of the issues that have come up surrounding this case. So first of all, this shooter, this Luigi guy, I don't really want to say his full name because again, there is zero justification for what this guy did. But apparently this gentleman who graduated from a very prestigious school and had a bright, promising career. Apparently he had this spinal condition called spondylolisthesis, which is basically these small fractures in your back and one bone slips on another. And it's a common ailment, and it could be very disabling and debilitating. And I guess he had a lot of trouble with the system getting approved for his surgery. He talked about this openly, was very upset, and then ended up having this surgery and initially did well. And then he kind of dropped off. So we don't really know. Maybe some of the details will come out. But before he had this operation, he was apparently in a state of emotional distress. The depression, anxiety, he talked about this openly. And then after he had his surgery for a condition, again, that's very commonly operated on if you fail, standard conservative measures. I don't know what his pictures look like. I'm not privy to any of these things. There was some posting of some hardware potentially in his back. Who knows what that's from? Or again, we'll talk about it more as more details come to light. But bottom line is he had the surgery, and apparently he did really well after the surgery. And after that, he was posting things on social media about and telling people kind of how to skirt the system, how to get your surgery approved, basically like faking a foot drop, or saying that basically your foot doesn't work, like something's wrong with your nerves, or saying that you're having bowel and bladder problems, all these other things, and really trying to game the system because in order to get the proper help that's needed. So number one, here I'll say this: I've looked through the stuff. It's a little bit nebulous, so we don't have enough information. And what happens in a lot of these situations, okay, and I've been in this game for a long time. I've been doing this for 20 years, okay? And people, you need to really have a very complete picture to understand whether there's been missteps, what's happened along the way. And so what's happening right now is people are trying to fill in the blanks on kind of his preoperative state, what was going on based on social media posting and interviews and things like that. So we don't know yet. I'm sure some of this stuff will come out. And then again, post-operatively, again, he initially did well. I'm not exactly sure of the exact surgery he had because I don't know if those films, those have to be, who knows? We don't know. Like what I'm saying is I don't know. I don't like to make assumptions when I don't know. And then, he's telling people, okay, you got to do this, you got to do that, giving people, you shouldn't live in pain. This is how you convince your surgeon to do surgery. And this is how you get your surgery approved by the insurance companies and this and that. This is a slippery slope. I'll tell you, as a surgeon, I've seen tens of thousands of patients, and it's an art, and we have to be really, really careful about using objective measures to make decisions on surgery, but also taking into account the patient's pain levels, their level of disability. We also have to really understand okay, if there's any gaming of the system going on, and it is an art, and certainly I've been in positions where clearly patients are trying to have surgery, and I spend my entire visit talking them out of surgery. One, because I don't believe that it is in their best interest, or they might need surgery, but I want them to do these other steps, not because I'm delaying their care. I want them to do those other steps right away. And I always say, I want to do this as quickly as possible. So if you need surgery, we'll do it. But I also want to make sure that people are not going into surgery without absolutely having the best of care before that. And certainly not if they don't need surgery, or the odds are not in their favor, for surgery. So it's extremely complicated. But what we see right now on social media is a lot of armchair experts that are just chiming in. There's people talking about everything. Some people blaming the insurance companies. Then there's this big discussion on when to have back surgery, when not to have back surgery. Some people are like, oh my God, it was the greatest thing. Some people are like, it was awful. Some people say they don't know anybody that's gotten, relief with back surgery. Some people are saying that it's the most amazing thing ever. And it goes all over the place, and it becomes dangerous because, again, like we talk about on my social media channel and other things, that's why you need the complete picture. We need to rely on experts, but not just maybe one expert, but a series of different opinions across specialties, especially when it is not clear whether or not surgery is the best option. So again, not just working in the spine surgery community, we're just talking spine surgery now. This applies to all kinds of other things, orthopedic surgery and general, all kinds of things where it's not an emergency. There's a lot of this discussion going around. It's very important to maybe get opinions outside of the special, but the truth is, we need a bunch of different experts from different walks of life working together to try to help you to get the absolute best care, especially if you're going to go down the route of having some major procedure or something like that. So that's one thing I just wanted to bring up, because there's just a lot of misinformation going around. And my advice is look at a lot of different sources, make sure these sources are experts, and then take all that information, okay, in aggregate, and then better decisions can be made about health. Okay, so that's one thing I wanted to point out, because obviously social media is the Wild West, and everybody's chiming in, and I see some dangerous things being said on all sides, and I think that there's a lack of understanding on multiple sides of this that debate. That's an entire other radio show that we can do. Again, we've kind of done it a little bit, but just to talk about the nuances of when to make the decision to move forward with surgery. It's not as straightforward as some of the stuff that I'm seeing out here. So let's talk about delay in care. That's one of the things that's brought up. I mean, we've just got the different buckets. So I obviously, I'm trying to help people. So when I say delay in care, I'm not even talking about necessarily delay in surgery. Absolutely. There are people that absolutely need to have surgery. And we know, I'm telling you, the faster they have surgery, the better they're going to do in some cases. Okay. As long as it's absolutely indicated. So for example, if somebody has a massive disc herniation and they've got, weakness or something like that, or they have severe compression on their spinal cord or their nerves, and things are really out of control, the faster we get to that, obviously, the better it is. Those decisions need to be made. That's not really, debatable. But then there's the other things where people are in such severe pain, and we know that, yes, it might not be an emergency now, and maybe they won't even necessarily need surgery, but they're trending in that direction. The delays in care are absolutely hurting people a lot. Okay. I've seen it over my 20-year career, and there's no question that it's gotten worse. So I just give you let's just give examples, right? And again, I'm not going to give I'm not going to obviously give specific patients, but general things, just kind of trend. So if a patient comes in and let's say they have a condition like a spondylolisthesis, okay, which this guy had, and they have nerve impingement, but it's been going on for a while, but their pain is finally gotten to the point where it's really impacting their quality of life severely. Okay, so for example, they might now be out of work. They might not be able to do their normal activities of daily life, things of that nature. If you think about it, one of the things that I preach often, and I've actually been giving a lot of talks lately, is the fact that the earlier we get them into care, okay, I'm not talking about surgery, I mean care, the quicker we can prevent them from going down the route of becoming seriously disabled chronic pain patients, which is it is a huge problem in our community. So let's give an example. Somebody comes in, I'm seeing a patient. Again, this is not medical advice. These are just general discussions to talk about what the frustrations are. So if I see a patient, they come in and they are like, for example, they have some nerve compression. They don't have any, like they don't have weakness. They don't have anything like that, but they're in severe pain. And now they can't work. I want to get that person in for the appropriate therapies, for the appropriate, potentially an injection around the nerves that are compressed to get them some relief of their pain. I want to get them into chiropractic care, physical therapy, light therapy, whatever is indicated in that particular case. And I want to get that going ASAP. Why? Why do we want to get that going ASAP? Well, let's think about what happens if I can't get them in for that care, or if it's slowed down. They have to jump through some hoop, or we have to wait for some approval. And I'm talking about for low-level care. I'm not even talking about for sure. I'm just talking about, hey, we want to get you into this or that, and things are slowed down. What happens? Why the concern? Obviously, we don't want them to have pain, but that's a general thing. Why? Because they're missing work, because their pain is potentially getting worse, because inevitably, like people are going, a lot of these people, they're so miserable. They end up in the emergency room. They go back to their primary care doctors. They go wherever, and they seek, and sometimes they need narcotics to control their pain. Now, again, we've talked about narcotics ad nauseum. They should be used extraordinarily judiciously. But when people are in such pain, they end up in these places. They go to urgent care. They go to the emergency room, they get put on all these medicines, and then that starts that process. Okay, and I'm not even going to go into the opioid crisis. That's a whole other thing. Okay, but narcotics can help pain, although again, it's low on my list of things that I want to do, because if there's other treatments, non-narcotic management, in my opinion, is much better if we can if we don't need to use that. However, once you start delaying people's care and they start making these trips to the urgency care, the urgent room, wherever they go, the emergency room, they get a hospital, whatever, they start getting on these higher level things. Okay, so now here's a scenario. Now the patient, now they're out of work. Now they're on narcotics. What else is happening? Let's think about this for a second. Now they're getting depressed. They're getting anxiety. Okay, now we're getting mental health issues going on, and those mental health issues make the pain worse. We know that. If you're depressed, if you have anxiety, your pain situation gets even worse, and it is a vicious spiral, and it's a vicious spiral downwards. And I've seen it with thousands of people, not 10, not 100, thousands. These stories are everywhere. And again, we're not talking about, oh, hey, like, let's get you into surgery tomorrow. No, because there's a lot of things we can add. There's a lot of things, most things we can treat without surgery. But guess what happens? The more their care is delayed, the more things spiral out of control. And then they're in such severe pain that they end up having other things that they wouldn't have needed if we could have just treated them earlier. And again, I'm just using one scenario. I'm telling you, I have seen people that are that there are professionals. Okay, we're talking nurses, doctors, lawyers, business people, this and that. I'm not, and again, they're no different than I, but some people just think of it, oh, these chronic pain people, there are certain types. No, they're not a certain type. Everybody can become a chronic pain person, and it can ruin your life. And it is so much harder to deal with these people once they're in that bucket than it is to deal with the problem when it arises. And again, every effort absolutely needs to be made to treat it without procedures and surgery and even high level medications. Every effort needs to be made. And I'm really committed to this. And you guys know this, how much I talk about laser therapy and light and all that stuff. We'll save that for later. But the spiral effect is real. And it is real. People lose jobs. They can't go back to work. They're in a spiral. Then what happens when you lose your job? And then you can't find the job. And it is just a vicious spiral. It's very sad to see. So delaying care, even if you end up getting what the doctor recommends, but it's 3 weeks down the road, 4 weeks down the road, 6 weeks down the road, not the way we need to be practicing medicine. And again, why? Why are we doing this? It doesn't really, it doesn't make sense to me as long as it is reasonable and necessary. Okay. And we can debate that. And I could tell you, been around so many, the absolute vast majority of the medical community. Listen, there's always going to be outliers. The vast majority of the medical community absolutely wants to do the right thing. So the pushback saying, oh, they're just trying to do this and people are trying to do that. There is no profession, none, where there aren't outliers that are doing the wrong thing. But the vast majority of people, just like the vast majority of patients that come to me, are being honest and open and just want care. Obviously, there's always going to be drug seekers, and there's always going to be people that want procedures because they're in some, lawsuit or something like that. There's always that. That's our job, to figure out who is trying to game the system and make sure that we're not getting sucked down that path. That's a whole other topic. But the bottom line is, the patient doctor, people are trying to do the right thing. We just want to help the patients to get better. So that's the delay bucket. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the deny bucket. Okay, we all know that, and this one really sparks. So I wanted to talk about the delay one first, because that one, I see this all day, every day. I mean, you've seen my rants if you guys follow me on social media or listen to me. But on the deny, situation, you've also seen me talk about that, right? And so we absolutely are having people that are being denied for higher level things or medications they need, or chemotherapy drugs, or certain types of antibiotics. Why? Because there might be a cheaper alternative. There might be this or that, or the T's weren't crossed and the I's weren't crossed. And again, what happens when people get denied? It's the same thing. People are getting denied for things where they are making the decision along with their healthcare provider that this is the best option for them. Now, there are situations where they might say, well, this treatment is more experimental or something like that. And then second opinions absolutely should be had, sometimes third opinions. But I will tell you, there's a lot of situations in my profession where I'm maybe a third opinion, and I'm actually recommending the same thing or a version of the same thing, and the patient is still denied for whatever reason. And there's a myriad. There's so many different reasons, for denials, or patients didn't quite jump through a specific hoop, or they didn't have enough physical therapy sessions, all these other things. I understand. The problem is that you cannot put people in some of these buckets. Yes, there has to be some type of general guidelines and things like that, but it is not a one size fits all. Again, I've been doing this for 20 years. Every patient is so different and so unique. And at the end of the day, if the healthcare system is not going to rely on the people that are dedicated their entire lives to making people's lives better, And when we are adamant that there are certain things that are absolutely in the best interest of the patients, and then on top of that, you get multiple opinions, and people are kind of coming into that same thing, say, you know what? Unfortunately, this is a patient that needs surgery. And other specialists, even outside of that, no one believes that there is anything better than and then those patients get denied. It's not good. And we see that. And it's the same thing as what happens when we delay care. Sometimes when we deny things, okay, and I understand that. And there has to be some level. I'm not saying nothing should be denied, because there certainly are things that should be denied. Okay, I see things too. I'm like, I don't know why that's approved, but maybe. But it's honestly, it's a lot less than it's made out to be. And again, we have to rely on the expertise of people that have done it. And I've said this before, I don't remember when I was in medical school that the decisions that I was going to make or that my colleagues were going to make along with the patient, I didn't know it was a 3-way decision or a 4-way decision, right? Because I always talk about how also, pharma and industry has its hand on what people are doing as well. So you have insurance company, you have pharma, sometimes we throw the hospitals in there. Okay, although that's a very different, issue. And I talk about that a lot in my upcoming book, all these scenarios. But I thought when I was getting my white coat on at my white coat ceremony at Columbia University, why am I excited, right? Because now I'm on my path to being a physician, and I have that responsibility of doing right by the patient. And we're taking that oath, right? Do no harm. And again, the absolute majority of all healthcare providers, we have different opinions on things, but we're trying to help. And we have to, we just have to make we just have to make people understand. And when I say people, I mean the people that are saying that somehow, like, the providers are trying to game the system. I will tell you, that's not the way. That's not the main that's not even close to the main problem. So there's my frustrations. But again, we graduate. We're so excited, right? We get our MD badge. We get all the stuff. We're excited, right? We're okay. We get it. Then we start getting experience, right? We do these long residency programs, grueling hours, 110 hours a week at times, sometimes more. You're not sleeping, right? You're not doing anything. You're dedicating your whole life. You're giving up your youth, right? Because you want to help people. Then you do even more advanced training, like I did, and in spine. And then you come out, and then you realize, okay, over time, and it was nowhere near as bad when I started. Okay, when I came out in 2000, nowhere near as bad. But then you start realizing, hey, I'm making decisions, but it's not really that I'm not the final decision maker. The final decision maker are these bureaucrats, sitting somewhere, right? That's problematic, and we have to change it. There has to be some type of happy medium in between, and we absolutely need to police. We have all these bodies, I will tell you, in the hospital. We have all kinds of committees and all kinds of things. We review cases, we review things that go bad, we review indications and what we use and all these other stuff. That's the place to make the decisions if somebody's an outlier or doing things outside, not an AI program or somebody that is not even an expert in what we do, whether it be in oncology, in ear, nose, and throat, in spine surgery, in knees, whatever it is. When you have non-experts making decisions because one box was not crossed, it has nothing to do with anything. It's not even relevant to it. And that's why I go on rants. Sometimes in the middle of my clinic, I'll just do a rant and put it on social media because I have a patient denied for something that for a piece of information that's literally not relevant. And a lot of times, thank you for the physicians. They come out there and they start, they give me more tips and tricks on how to get around it and stuff. I get that, but it doesn't make any sense to me. And that's why I get really upset that some of these patients are being denied. And I will tell you, 30%, 25 to 30%, this is just a rough estimate, of my clinics are spent talking to people that are upset that their care has either been slowed down or completely denied. Okay, and I have to talk them off the ledge. And then we have to sit there together and strategize how we can get them back on track. This is not what we should be doing with our time. Okay, so that's that. We'll leave that for a minute. We'll see if we have time to get back to some of those things. The last thing that I think we have time for, and we could certainly do another show, especially when Mandy, my co-host, is back, because I'd love to pick her brain on this subject. Her as a nurse practitioner, being in that brain health space, it's just fascinating, because that's a whole other discussion about where people get shuttled and how they go. So my other humongous frustration with what's happening with people is it's in some ways it's absolutely ridiculous. Okay, so here you go. You can't argue completely 180 opposite ends of the spectrum. On one hand, the insurance companies are arguing that too many procedures, too much surgery, too many new drugs are given out, too many new chemotherapies, all this. You're arguing that, but yet you don't allow patients to have root cause functional medicine testing, which can get down to really what is wrong. And patients have to actually come out of the traditional medical system to get that. And not all patients can afford those things. And so what do? They are shuffled into a system that actually has to give advice based on what your insurance will cover. So many times I've had an entire, radio show dedicated to this. A lot of times patients are not even told, hey, you have these other 19 options for your condition. Why? Because the providers know that they're not going to be able to get that approved under their insurance. So all they're going to do is, well, take this medicine or do this procedure or do that, because it is. So how could we argue both? I don't understand. If that makes sense to anyone, please leave that in the comments. How do the insurance companies say, well, all this stuff is being done, it's unnecessary, it's blah, blah, blah. But on the other side, you say, you know what? Yeah, you're doing too much of that, but we're also not going to pay for preventative care, the best of preventative care. Okay. And that goes for testing, but it also goes for things that are in that biohacking space, photobiomodulation, light and laser therapy, oxygen therapy, all kinds of other things that are not covered. Okay. It makes no sense, because now you're denying on one end or delaying care on one end, but yet you're not allowing people to have the preventative care that they need. And I mean detailed preventative care. And one of the things I've seen, and you know how passionate I am about this, is that the amount of resources that go into preventative medicine right now are woefully inadequate. And people are not getting the correct preventative medicine, so much so that myself, as a spine surgeon, had to go outside of the traditional medical system, build my own clinics here in town, wellness clinics, and now an integrative health clinic, just so that I can offer people things that might be of benefit to them, that are low cost outside the traditional medical system. But unfortunately, the medical system won't pay for it. But I know they're going to get better care. Why? Because when it's outside of the medical system, we can practice freely and say, you know what, you need these, 50 functional medicine tests so we can really get to the heart of what's going on. Think about how extreme that is. Think about, I've had colleagues that have come, on the show. One that comes to mind is Dr. Christy Prouse, a practicing OBGYN from Toronto, who's like, I can't even give people the care that I need. And this isn't Canada. That's a different medical system, right? But had to step out of the traditional medical system to build an integrative medicine practice where she practices with a naturopath, and is having tremendous results with her patients, which she could not get within the traditional medical system. Why? Because she had to prescribe to whatever the insurance company was letting people have, to what was quote unquote acceptable. Okay. And the stuff I talk about, that stuff is like, let's take light therapy. What is the FDA? What is the actual wording of the FDA? Clinically insignificant risk. So now you're not going to let people have things that are low cost and have, according to the FDA, clinically insignificant risk. But then when people spiral out of control because we haven't gotten to their root causes, because we haven't done the correct preventative medicine, because we haven't done the advanced lipid, protocols well outside of what is in acceptable, standard practice now they're really sick. Okay, so we haven't gotten the right preventative medicine, and now they're really sick, and now we want to now we're going to deny them or delay their care when they need higher level drugs or big procedures. I mean, what I don't even understand. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's so complicated. And there's so much stuff going around from all angles, including, I see some providers out here, but a lot of the lay public. But it is so much deeper than everything that we're talking about. And honestly, it makes no sense. So what do we need to do about it? What are we going to do? You know how I feel. Number one, the autonomy needs to get back in the hands of the physicians and the other providers that are dedicating their life. Otherwise, you're not going to have the type of people that we need in these professions that you want taking care of you. Okay, because in general, people don't want to go into spaces where they cannot do the thing that they've dedicated their whole life to do. And they have to sit there listening to people being upset because they're delayed or denied in their care. So that's number one. We've got to get the autonomy back in the hands of the physicians. And there's so many of us that are out here willing to dedicate our time and effort to sit down with whoever's willing to listen to us to try to be part of that solution. And again, I'm at your service. I will dedicate time, to trying to help this. Right now, I'm doing it through things like this, writing the book and other things. The next thing we need to do is we need to drastically increase the resources that we put into preventative medicine, getting down to root causes, getting a lot of these functional medicine things absolutely, approved throughout across the board, integrative health, biohacking, all of these other things that are quote unquote outside the system. And again, I've jumped up and down. It should be well within the system. And again, I'm kind of on the lecture circuit talking to all kinds. I mean, I just talked to a huge group of workers' compensation attorneys. I have another a big group of attorneys. I'm on a CEO panel, a healthcare panel in January. I have a TED Talk coming up at Harvard in April. I'm doing everything I can to try to talk about these modalities that get at the root causes to really help people, go there. And then, I would say the third thing, and there's a lot of things, and again, we don't have time for it. And before we get to the break, I think that the third thing that I really want people to do, and we talk about it often, and that is be the CEO of your own healthcare. And one of the things to be the CEO of your own healthcare is you guys have to educate yourselves on the way that the system works. Okay, you cannot go in blindly going to doctor's visits and doing all these other things without understanding how you're going to be directed. I talk about like where you start in the system can really determine where you go. You're not going to know where to start and the right places to go if you're not educated on how the system works and how the system can prevent you from getting the care you need. So it's one of those things. Remember those commercials that we always used to see on TV? The more you know. Well, that's the thing. You really need to know about this stuff, and hopefully programs like this help. What we talk about on the book, and there's so many other amazing people talking about this stuff ad nauseum, whether it be on social media, through podcasts, in their books, and things like that. So again, educate yourselves, understand your own insurance policy, understand how the doctors or the providers that you're going to think about it, or the chiropractors or the naturopaths or the herbalists or whoever you have to understand how it works, because otherwise you might get lost in that system and not get the care when you need it, and especially not to get the preventative care when you need it. And it's all about preventative care. That's where we're going to, save the trillions of dollars. So on that note, it's time for our little break here. This is Dr. Stefano Sinicropi. I'm fired up. This is Recharging the Human Battery Radio. We are on AM 950, and we will see you in a few minutes on the other side of the break. All right, here we go. Last segment, Recharging the Human Battery Radio. I'm Dr. Stefano Sinicropi. We're on AM 950 Radio, and we've been talking about, the healthcare system, the insurance system, the craziness that has gone on with the tragic events surrounding the UnitedHealthcare CEO, and all of the topics that have come out after it. I'm going to end like this. I hope that, going through the big buckets, which is the delay, the denials, and then the lack of approval in the system. In other words, the lack of people being able to seek a lot of things, which I really believe should be part of the toolbox of every physician to be able to get to the root cause of the patient's problems, and then some of the solutions that are outside of the traditional medical system. So we could do more buckets than that, but I thought that's what we had, time for. But let's, as we finish up this hopefully very open conversation, and I get your thoughts and what you think, I really want you to leave them in the comments, because I want to respond. I will respond to your comments on social media if you want to really get into this topic. But I'll end it like this, and we've said this so many times, right? We're spending $4.4 trillion on healthcare. And I'll be the first person to say it's crazy. We cannot do this. We're headed towards $7 trillion in 2030. Changes need to come. But the way that people are trying to do that with slowing down care and denying care and that is not the way. That is not the way forward. We need to stop and think, how much better, how much reduced costs are we going to have if we focus on preventative healthcare? If we focus on integrative and functional medicine strategies to get people better, if we pour money into education and resources so that people know how to be CEOs of their own healthcare, keeping themselves healthy, and this starts when they're in school. We should have courses in grade school talking about how important it is to reduce sugar consumption, to exercise, right? To keep good mental health, to take breaks when you need it. All of these things that can reduce by trillions. But meanwhile, we're going at it a different way. We're letting people get sick in America, right? We spend more per capita, but yet we're getting sicker on almost every single metric. And then when people get really sick, what do we tell them? Yeah, you got to jump through this hoop and you got to jump. How about we don't let them get sick in the first place? And as you guys know, a large percentage of chronic disease is absolutely preventable with lifestyle changes, preventative medicine, throwing in biohacking to some degree, if you want, as a, kind of an extra. There's so many things, right? Diet, exercise, nutrition, mental health, all these things. Let's focus on that. And that will make a lot of these other things get better, because then when people do get sick and they need high level care, or they're in severe pain and they need a surgery or whatnot, it's such a lower number of people that will need it, because again, we have a much healthier and happier population, that then this becomes a moot point and everybody wins. So we're looking for win-win situations. This is something that I'm passionate about and absolutely 100% committed to for the remainder of my career, looking for solutions, being on the forefront of being at these conferences and talking to people and trying to be a liaison between the medical community and the lay people, and trying to get an understanding, how can we have a better, happier, healthier society where we don't have to have senseless killings just to make the point that we're having a lot of issues with our insurance system. The craziness is getting crazier. And so we'll talk about this more. Hopefully I'll pick this up with my co-host Mandy, either next week or the week after that, once she's back. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Take care of your families. Go out and be CEOs of your own healthcare. Learn about the system and how it can best get you healed and where you want to be. And we will see you on the next episode of Recharging the Human Battery. I'm Dr. Stefano Sinicropi. This is AM 950 Radio. It's been a wonderful hour spent with you today. See you next time.